welcome to Sacred Spaces. My name's Michaela Drieberg and today we're in Carlton North. To be exact, we're on the corner of Lygon Street and Richardson Street. And we're in front of an old building that some of you may be familiar with, once upon a time known as the Rising Sun Hotel, but now it's known as, oh, I'm going to get this wrong so I'm going to throw it to you. How do I pronounce it again?
Enotica Sileno.
Enotica Sileno. So John Portelli is the owner of this beautiful building and the owner of the business that we'll learn a little bit more about today. And we're also joined by two other people that may seem familiar with you. It's Bob Barber and Michael Tracy from Ability Building Colours. Welcome.
Thank you.
So, this building, how long have you been involved with it?
Effectively, we've been involved with it for about 14 years in all, since it came onto the market, and we spent 3 years, 3 months, literally restoring the whole interior, starting from the roof, going down to the cellar.
And what drew you to the building?
One main reason was effectively the unique liquor license. It's had its original liquor license for 150 years, and for our business to go to the next step, we needed to have a lot more flexibility in what we were doing. We were predominantly in an old Victorian dairy, only about 600 metres away. We had limitations, and it was a residential street, so we felt, look, this is an opportunity to be able to expand further into the retail, do our cookery school, expand on people being able to use our products in a restaurant format, and so at that time we also elaborated into that sector.
And stumbled across this absolute gem. And you've said you were involved with it for many years, but 3 years, 3 months in the restoration?
Pretty well every day. I'm a very, very hands-on person, and I have a great relationship with our builder who's amazing. We just would discuss something, would come up, and we'd come up with immediate solutions. And that, I think, is extremely important. But when you've got such an old building and it had 14 rooms upstairs and a whole lot of literally rabbit warrens downstairs, we needed to open that space out. And an old building required a lot of engineering and working how it would flow the best.
And the part that we really want to focus on today, because that's a story in itself, is the exterior, the facade behind me, which you cannot go past, and is a part that you worked on very closely with Michael and Bob from Ability Building Colours, and in particular their invention, duro paint. So this isn't something that is unfamiliar to our viewers now, because we've had a look at one of your other beautiful buildings, and you've also been involved with the restoration of a number of buildings, historic buildings around Melbourne and beyond. So tell us a little bit about duro paint and the invention behind that.
Well, the duro paint that John and his wife selected is duro paint stipple, a slightly stippled textured paint. And Michael and John worked closely on the colour. So you can tell about the colour, Michael.
He's taking my job. Tell us about the colour, Michael.
Okay. When John came to us, he came with his painter, Michael Petrocelli, who uses duro paint quite a bit. And with that, with the colour was very important. Red was chosen, and red can come in many different shades. So the shades were discussed, and it's very hard for someone to describe a colour and then to produce the colour. So from a verbal description of a colour is a challenge to understand what the client wants, what John wanted in that red to cover the whole facade. So it was really good that we could work together to get the result that everyone was happy with.
And the story behind the colour, I think, is amazing and ties in so beautifully to where we're physically located here and the history of Carlton in particular, but then also Italy and Australia in general. So tell us a little bit about why this colour was so important and what's the meaning behind it.
Okay, well, Enotica have been around for now 63 years. We specialise in importing into Australia in over 450 Italian wines produced by small wineries from all of Italy, as well as the greatest range of genuine artigiani food products from true artisans going back generations. This involves me travelling to Italy, and throughout each of my trips I would drive maybe 3,000-4,000 kilometres. And when you're driving from the most southern point of Italy, right through to the most northern point, you actually feel quite a unique difference in architecture and colours. And because of our genuine Italian, I think, in the way that we are entrenched with Italy, we felt that we wanted to replicate this sort of colour that reflected the wine, but also being sympathetic to North Carlton and the heritage area. So we needed to find something that was not going to be, and you can never replicate the Tuscan sienna red because it's got the brown in it. And we didn't want that because this colour, this building literally changes colour all day. So from its morning sunrise, it hits the east and it catches that southerly part of the building, you find that you've got these really unique light, subtle reds. But in the summer, in the late afternoon, as the west comes down, and we've got a street perpendicular to us, the sun comes right down and it collects both the southern and the western facade. This colour, this paint, this effect, this stipple effect really is almost like looking at Uluru in sunrise and and at sunset. So it's really given that the building stands out, but it merges and it's subtle in the way that it that appears. So this red, we went through so many different shades and we had so many different samples and the texture, and you don't notice the stipple effect from a distance. But the effect that the stipple effect has with changing light, it gives it life. And this is, I think, quite unique without standing out and being, a great blaring colour.
Just what I think is beautiful about it, it does stand out because it is amazing building and an amazing colour, but it also blends in seamlessly with some of the heritage homes that are around us.
Indeed. And if you have a look, there are a lot of mouldings, and you've got the parapets, and you've got the ledges, and around each of the windows, those reveals, and they have all been meticulously restored. I mean, the painters scraped away about 3.5 tonnes of old render and old paint that over the 150 plus years had literally started to crumble. And they had superb craftsmen in the way that they were able to re-render and give it this beautiful skim coats, yet maintaining all of the definition of the building. And those definitions and that three-dimension of the building together with the duro stipple, it really just enhances, it all works together.
It's stunning, and the restoration is stunning, and we're just looking at the facade and the exterior. I can't imagine what it's like inside as well.
Inside is really quite special. I mean, I probably am a frustrated builder in a previous life, and even the simple things like, I'm a great believer in sound and acoustics. I've got full auditorium acoustic ceilings, so you could hear yourself speaking, and it just gives you a very, very calming effect. And I think that this is quite important in such a building.
I'm dying to go inside, but before we do, I just wanted to ask Bob and Michael if you had anything else that you wanted to add to what is a beautiful story that John shared with us in terms of the history and the reasoning behind the colour in particular of the duro paint that was chosen.
Well, I think that John has explained the subtlety of duro paint stipple. There are another 2 duro paints, duro paint matte, as I've said, and duro paint low sheen. We just got an export order for the Philippines for 18 pails, and we're looking forward to shipping that. What are you going to say about this, Mike?
With the duro paint on, it's I'd probably in this context, the context we're at the moment, I would probably be concentrating more on. It is used a lot on heritage buildings. Something that has been on sacred spaces recently is the Abbotsford Convent, and duro paint was used in a conservative way there, just to make it look like it is meant to be over 100 years old. This building again, it's meant to stand out, but at the same time, it is meant to last for another 100 years. Yeah, that's what we're after.
I believe John insisted on 3 coats. Now, we normally recommend 2 coats and guarantee it for 25 years. Duro paint, all duro paints are guaranteed for 25 years on vertical structures. We also there are people that use it widely for pavements and horizontal surfaces, and there we give a guarantee for 15 years. But John's point about Uluru and the movement of the sun is a very good point about colour. He's described it very, very well. Thank you, John.
Well, pleasure. And I think that when I actually mentioned to Michael and Michael Petruccelli, the painter, when Michael and Bob came and visited the building when it was completed, Petruccelli, the painter, was actually quite upset because he said he's diddled himself of the next generation of maintenance works on the actual paintwork because of its longevity. And I think something that was really quite interesting that gives us this unique, if you're looking at the tonality of it, it's actually quite unique because also in the method of actually applying. And I wasn't aware that it actually came in a dry format. And when they actually mixed it, they mixed it with, at the temperature of the water had to be a certain temperature for certain times. And they have, and I'd have upstairs as a reminder, as a souvenir, a very, very unique paintbrush. It's actually quite thick, quite wide and quite thick, but the amount of energy that is required in this cross-thatch method of applying, it's just really quite exhaustive, and you've got to be actually quite strong, and you can only do batches at a time. But after that's been done, then they've got to come back and they actually have to wash the building, they wash the paint so that it sets. So this whole process, it shows you and it tells you that it's really, you're actually forever at it. It's not just that, you whack on a coat of paint and you've gone. This whole process, you can feel that it's just, impregnating into the actual mortar, and it all becomes like one. So I was really quite pleased, and I have to say we have thousands of customers and a lot of local, because this is a high density population. And not one customer has come to us and said, they've not said they don't like the colour, they've not said they don't like the paintwork or the restoration. They're actually quite proud that they've got such a building that was actually brought back to life with this Duro paint stipple.
I can imagine what it means to the community around here in that, as you've said, not only do they have, a fantastic business to come and frequent, but it's a beautiful building, something they're really proud to live near.
Indeed.
I'm dying to have a look inside. Can you give us a tour?
Absolutely.
Excellent. Okay. So, John, this is your stunning interior, and you talked about outside just how much effort went into the restoration of the interior, but in particular opening up the building, and you certainly get that sense in here. It's really open and inviting, and it's beautiful.
Yes, it's very, very calming. The dark walnut ceilings, and a lot of those are acoustic ceilings. The ergonomic floor with the dimples that actually help staff not to come under fatigue during the day. But the way that the building was opened out, there were so many different partitions, and to open out and to engineer in such a way where structurally the building was still going to be sound, but it gave that area of zones and that area of being able to flow from one area to another and almost do a 360. If you're coming through here into the retail, you will be, I suppose you decide, am I going to go left to the wine wall or to the wines, or do I go head down with the food corridors that lead into the sunroom that open out into the courtyard? And the courtyard is a very Mediterranean courtyard with a beautiful pergola. It's taken about 8 years to grow, but the result on that is, again, gives you that sense of this great Mediterranean feeling that showcases, and I think it enhances a lot of the great artisan producers that we represent, and particularly their unique products that are quite extraordinary. And I have to say that they are the benchmark of products in their category that you would find anywhere in Italy. When we have people visiting us from Italy, they say that they do not find all of these products in one particular area in Italy. You have to travel for 500, 600, 1,000 kilometres, because each zone, each region focuses on their own, as against we've been able to select the best. And in our travels, we've developed great relationships with suppliers that have gone on for decades and decades with the same family, and now the next generation have taken over, who have the same passion that their parents and grandparents had when they established those products.
So if someone came to visit you here, what sort of products can they expect to come across?
We pioneered in Australia in the late 70s and early 80s, so that's well over 35 years ago, extra virgin olive oil when it wasn't even in the dictionary. And we gave great representations and set the benchmark so that when Australia started planting olives and produced olive oils, they knew as producers what level they had to go to. Balsamic vinegar, authentic balsamico, because there is industrial and there's the real thing. The greatest greatest rice for risotto is vialonenano and carnaroli. And the rice that we have, and the fundamental ingredient to produce the greatest rice is water. So our rice is produced with pure spring water, resurging spring water, no pesticides, no herbicides, rotation of the fields, and they use carp as a pesticide. We have the greatest artisan pastas that are produced, and today everybody makes what they call an artisan pasta. But our pastas are produced by same families, again, for about 75 years, and they will produce it very, very slowly and very low temperatures in the drying. So it probably takes 35 to 50 hours to produce 1 kilo, and for them to actually provide us with an order would probably sometimes take 5 months. So we have to work a long way ahead. You know, we cure our parmigiano, we nurse our parmigiano. I think as we nurse our parmigiano, some parents would nurse their children because we continually rub them with olive oil and we rotate them. We cut it in the artisan way with the almond knife. You only get 1 crust. We wrap it in calico. This means that at home you can keep your parmigiano comfortably in the fridge for even a month, 2 months without going off in the way that we wrap it. And there are so many other products like preserves, vegetables, amazing sea salt. You know, your fish will wag its tail on its plate because our Sicilian sea salt is sweet, and a lot of it is even still raked by hand. And this is really quite unique as against some of the salts that are really high in sodium. And so you don't need as much, but it really enhances the flavour. And people will say, why is it that I went to Italy and the food tasted so much different? But it's not always looked at that salt is an important component. And look, there's another range, and I think
The wine, John. I can't go past the wine. Tell us about the wine quickly.
Great regional representation of our wines, importantly, and I think this is quite crucial. We are really fanatical in what we do, and I would say that we run the state-of-the-art warehousing for all of our products. We have, even in our warehouse, we obtained R15.5, and being an architectural show, people who understand architecture know that that's probably 3 times the thermal factor of a 6-star house. We've got over 85 centimetres of layered insulation that we've put in our warehouse, and therefore our climatisation equipment actually runs on really low consumption. And we're able to maintain on 40-degree days about 18 degrees in our warehouse. That's after a week of really hot days. But fundamentally, we ship in refrigerated containers, and crossing the equator, a lot of products would get to over 60 degrees. So if you're bringing in wines and great producers, it will oxidize. And because of the fact that we bring them in the temperature at the right times of the year, we store them. Our lighting is LED lights. So LED high bay lights do not emit UV rays, and hence the UV is not going to affect the stability or flavour or oxidisation of those wines. And they'll keep at their optimum probably 4 or 5 years longer than what you would normally expect its life to be. Our conditions are probably even better than some of our suppliers, so to speak. So from the producer right through to the consumer, they can rest assured that if it's not good enough for us to eat or drink, it's not good enough for them. And we've always strived for that benchmark level that has taken 60 plus years to achieve. You can't buy it, you have to work at it.
You can't buy passion, and it's certainly oozing out of you.
I'm so fortunate that I'm dealing with great people who produce, with a great team behind me, and importantly, with great consumers who have supported us for so long.
Yeah. And one other thing that I've heard is fantastic to get while you're here is a coffee and a marzipan biscuit. Is that right?
Well, yes, our coffee, again, you know, we ship it refrigerated, it's constant, you would not find it's oily. It's actually naturally low in caffeine without being decaffeinated. It is toasted in small batch roasting, and they roast individual varieties, Robusta and Arabica, and you'll find that it doesn't have the bitter, the acidic or the burnt flavour, and it is great with one of our almond biscotti more than marzipan biscotti, or any of our other biscotti that are incidentally gluten-free as well.
So we go find the gentleman again and perhaps try these out?
I'm sure that Ralph and Stephanie will be able to provide a great beverage for us to enjoy.
Excellent, let's do that then.
Thank you.
Well, here we are in the Mediterranean courtyard, about to have our biscotti and all our different coffees, and it's just been a gorgeous time here. Thank you all for sharing your experiences of Enoteca Sileno. Did I say that right? Yes. And really sharing what is a beautiful project of a restored building that really just oozes the passion that went into it as well. So I do like to ask everyone that's been on our show, given the show is called Sacred Spaces, if you could choose a sacred aspect, a sacred space within this project, what would it be? So I might throw to you first, Bob.
Well, to be honest, the sacred space is sitting right next to you. It exudes out of John Sportelli. Is that enough?
You're our sacred space, John. I love it. And what do you think, Michael?
I like the concept of the glass. I think the glass really shows the age of the building. There's different windows around. I think that really shows the age of the building and shows some of its original heritage. But at the same time, with the outside being restored to what it is, I think it also shows what North Carlton is about today with Enotica Sileno, with just the way it is showing the Italian heritage of this area.
Thank you. And lucky last, John, this is your labour of love. Can you choose one part?
Well, Michaela, it's difficult, as you can understand, and because I spend so many years every day coming to this site. But when I park my car and I approach the building, I always get this amazing feeling, and I just absorb and sometimes just stop on the other side of the road for a second. And when I walk into the building, and I normally walk around and I'll have my coffee and I'll meet up with staff, but each area exudes a very, very different feeling. Yet it's all one, but whether it's the wine wall or the food corridor or the artisan pasta room or the courtyard or the terrace, each area gives me a different feeling. And I'm really so fortunate that I get these different eclectic mixes of feeling in this one amazing sacred space that probably is more like a temple.
I couldn't have summed it up any better myself, so I'm going to leave it there. Thank you again to Bob, to Michael and to John for sharing your time with us today. It truly is a sacred space, and I'm about to top it off with a wonderful mocha.
Grazie.
My name's Michaela Dreberg. You've been watching Sacred Spaces, and we'll see you next time.